Assalamu alaikum, and welcome once again to the show. It is the mid-morning show with me, Julie Ali. Do keep me company right up until 1 o'clock today. Coming up, we'll be talking with Raeesa Bulbulia. She is a pediatric occupational therapist, and Melissa Platt will also be joining her. She's a palliative coach, a speaker, and a professional consultant. And obviously, we're going to be talking about some very, very relevant issues this morning. So do stay with us. And also, please become a part of the conversation via any one of our social media platforms. Also on the show, Ramadan, the spirit of Ramadan with Sheikh Riyad Walls. And can't wait for that interview. When we talk spirituality and how to make the most of the month of Ramadan. Alex Christians, the Ward 58 City of Joburg councillor, is going to be talking to us about the IDP processes and why residentials should get involved with this process. That is something pretty important, very especially for Joburgers, so do stay in. And in between all of that, we are going to talk to an absolutely amazing woman. She's 70 years old. She suffers from Parkinson's disease, and she's going to share her story with us, her story of her journey through Parkinson's, and hopefully it's going to motivate you and inspire you if you are in a similar situation on just how to take back your life, don't give away your power, and become very, very productive. So all of that on the show and much, much more. Let's welcome to the program our first two guests. They'll be joining us jointly, and that, of course, is Raeesa Bulbulia and the palliative coach, that is Melissa Platt. They both have the most amazing stories as far as their life journey, their children, their loved ones are concerned. They're going to share that with us on the show this morning. And over and above that, they're also going to be telling us how they are trying to put a hand out or a hand up to people in a similar situation, and how just to stay strong. And you can then rise above all odds. Assalamu alaikum, Raeesa. Welcome to the program. Great to see you. And Melissa, hi there, and welcome to the show. Okay, so I'm going to start with Melissa first. We have talked with Raeesa plenty of times on the show, but it's never enough because there's always new and newer things that are happening. And we also like to keep progress of our little warrior, Zane. So from time to time, she does come onto the show and keeps us abreast and motivates other people that are in similar situations. So who exactly is Melissa Platt, and how? I understand there's a partnership here, but before you talk about the partnership, give us some of your background.
Thank you so much, and really excited to be on your show this morning. So I am, as you said, a palliative coach, but more importantly, I'm also the mother of Sam. And Samuel John Frederick Platt was a beautiful little boy. He would have been 6 years old this year, but very sadly, he passed away on the 22nd of July in 2016. And Sam, very much like Zane, had a very long healthcare journey, but sadly, he passed away. But he was a warrior too, and he was born at 28 weeks. He was a microprem, and then he literally fought for his life thereafter. But one of the key kind of challenges that we had in his journey was that as parents, we often felt unheard. We didn't seem to have a voice in healthcare. And that's why I went on to study palliative medicine, because I really felt that there was a need for a different type of healthcare journey, a journey where the human was centered to the care. Not just the human as the patient, but also the human in terms of the health professional, because healthcare is such a challenging environment in which to work. So that's really my focus, where I coach and debrief health professionals, and also help parents navigate the chronic journey. And Raeesa and I were very blessed to have met each other when we set up a support group for parents with a chronic child, because it's such a roller coaster to be able to support your child through that journey, as well as for bereaved parents, because there's not often the support that one needs when you lose a child or when you're having to go through the chronic journey and navigate that journey. So Yeah, that's really our story. We have the Footprints for Sam Trust, which is Sam's legacy. And we've been very blessed over the last few years to be able to really touch thousands of children's lives. We have 6 key initiatives. We supply transport to children to and from hospital. They're obviously stable, so it's not a taxi, it's not an ambulance, but a VIP service for children from the townships into the hospitals to their clinics, because it's so important as part of the chronic journey to make sure they're going into hospital properly and are going for their follow-up appointments. And then we have food and bucket programs where we make sure that children are fed and have the correct hygiene when they go home or when they're in hospital, because toiletries are so important. We have bereavement and support, and that's where I met Raeesa. And then we have advocacy, as I said, for human-centered healthcare. And what's so exciting is this new program that we're going to be chatting about today, which is the tracheostomy program.
All right, we'll get to that in a little while. I do want to say I am so deeply sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
I guess a parent never, ever gets over something like that. And I truly salute you for not wallowing in a little corner and, being this perpetual victim. But you have come forward and you're wanting to make a difference in other people's lives. I just think it is absolutely amazing. Raeesa, you and I know you personally, obviously, so I do know the story. But let's share your journey up to now with little Zane, and then we'll talk about how you and Melissa met and your new venture. And how is Zane doing? Alhamdulillah, he's 5 years old already?
He turned 5 in January, alhamdulillah, yes.
Oh, mashallah, that's wonderful.
He's actually at school this morning.
Wow.
He started homeschooling. So it's at home, but he's got school 3 days a week. And again, that's something we really weren't sure we'd get to, but it's a big milestone for us too. 5 years old, full of life, full of energy, full of personality. Let me put it that way. Very feisty, very strong little 5-year-old who has a little say in everything. And an opinion on everything at the moment too. So he's doing well. He's doing well. I was saying with COVID, we were so worried about what was going to happen and should he pick this up. And I think with all our isolation protocols and everybody else doing the same kind of thing that we are doing now, masking, being a little bit more cautious in terms of catching other things, he's been really healthy. So for the first time, it has been, let me think, 14 months since Zane is hospital free. And for us, that is a major, major, major success, because we were in and out of hospital every few months. So it's over a year that he's been hospital free. And that has been remarkable for this little boy, because the hospital just causes so much stress and so much anxiety.
And that gives you hope, does it not? I mean,
absolutely.
Just take us back to when you realized that something was not right with Zane. You were fobbed off initially by doctors. And I mean, yes. not everyone can know Zane everything. We do understand that.
Absolutely. So Zane was born with a rare disease. He was only diagnosed at 8 months because I was literally pushed from pillar to post saying that I'm a paranoid mum, or I should be a mom, not a therapist. Sorry, the other way around. And finally, we got the right people involved, and they diagnosed him with a very rare disease called Pompe disease. And that's really where our journey started, because he was diagnosed so late. His prognosis really wasn't good. So we were told that often children with the type of Pompe disease that Zane has don't really live to a year. And Zane got to his first birthday, and he got to his second birthday, and he got to his third birthday. But there were lots and lots of people and lots of initiatives and organizations that were involved in getting Zane to where he is. And one of those people, instrumental people, is Melissa. And I remember when he was 2 years old, he was really ill. He'd had both lungs that had collapsed. And we'd been, I think, over a month now in the hospital. And we were hanging on to any shred of hope that we could hang on to. And that's when I met Melissa, and she had said, you need to advocate for your son. You do everything you need to do, irrespective of what other healthcare professionals are telling you. So if you are not happy, you change doctors, you change hospitals, you do what you need to do. And she kind of gave me I always say she's the little voice at the back of my head that tells me stand up for your child.
Okay.
And that's really what we had to do when Zane was 2. And it was at that hospital stay that really changed Zane's life. It was that hospital stay that we had to put in a breathing tube, which is called a tracheostomy. We had a tracheostomy, which is a procedure where they make a hole into your throat and they put a breathing tube into that hole. And that was life-changing for Zane. He literally spent the first 2 years of his life living to breathe. And once we put in that trachea, it went for Zane not having to spend as much energy on breathing. He could now breathe easily and then be the little boy that he needed to be, and had the energy to be the little boy that he needed to be. Yeah.
Raeesa, did you think, I mean, I know the journey of you as a family because your mom and I are great friends, as you know. Did you ever think that you'd reach this stage? Was there ever a time in your life where you were in such a dark place that you thought, well, this is it, this is the end of it all?
So that year when Zane turned 2 and he spent his second birthday in the ICU, we were called in by our doctors, actually the diagnosing doctor, his cardiologist, who sat us in his rooms and said, you know, you've been living on borrowed time, and I think that borrowed time is running out. And when you get told something like that, it puts so much into perspective. I don't think any parent can ever prepare to lose a child. But at the same time, life and death is not in the hands of humans. So we did everything we possibly could, held on to faith and prayed. And this little being came through. He really did. He really did. And
Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah. I'll have to stop you there. We're going for an ad break. When we get back, we'll continue the discussion. Raeesa, Bulbulia and Melissa Platt are here talking to us about a partnership that they formed. More about that right after the ad break. Yeah.
Looking to get your kick? Kikis have now reopened on 235 Matthews Maiwa Road in Durban. Head on over for the Taste with Kick. We offer something scrumptious for everyone in the family. Wraps, chicken tikka, burgers, tender grilled, mocktails, milkshake.
Internet.
Nothing coming through. No sound.
We'll find you.
See, I asked her where's Ziad.
Yeah, okay. He's going to
Sleep, because he starts very early.
yeah. Smart for the it's not a mistake, they did something. Yeah, use this one. How are you hearing it?
Hey?
How are you hearing them?
Will it work with this?
Yeah, that's the thing. Good question.
Okay.
Because maybe when you speak to them, you need to use that one.
Hey?
When you speak to them, you need to use that one.
You off there in mid-sentence. You just want to finish your train of thought? Or are you done telling me the story?
I think I'm good. I must be honest, I can't remember where we were at.
Oh, no. Melissa, so was your son diagnosed with the same condition as Zane?
No, so he didn't have Pompe's. He had what was known as central core disease, which is a muscle myopathy. But Sam was in hospital his whole life. He was in hospital for 15 and a half months and he never came home. So we really had a very long and intense ICU journey. And I just so resonated, Raeesa, with what you said about how he was living to breathe. And that's how we felt, because Sam, we were told he couldn't have a tracheostomy, he would die. And we only got a tracheostomy at about 13 and a half months. And as soon as he had his trachea, his life also changed dramatically. But very sadly, because Sam had been in hospital for so long and on a ventilator for so long, he had 3 superbugs, nosocomial infections, hospital-acquired infections. And it was because of those superbugs that he died. He didn't die because of central core disease. He died, sadly, because clinicians were not prepared to give him a trachea, and being on a ventilator for so long destroyed his lungs. And then with all the Pseudomonas, Burkholderia, Klebsiella, he then got sepsis in his port and he passed away. So it's just such an honor to be with Raeesa and to be working with the hospitals to really see how do we change the culture of healthcare to focus on what children really need and not to be scared of tracheostomies. Because for some reason, in Cape Town, they've had a wonderful program called the Breathe Easy program for many years that gives children home. And in Johannesburg, there are very few that do it successfully. And that's why we are so determined to make sure that these children do not die in hospital, but get home, really driven largely by Zane's journey and Sam's journey.
As both of you speak, I kind of wonder, and in a very positive way, and pray for both of you and your support structure around you, is how much of support do you need, and do you guys take care of yourselves to get that support? Because if you're not good, you're not going to be good for your little one. Am I right, Raeesa? And I'm sure from experience, Melissa, you can identify with what I'm saying.
Absolutely. And yeah.
All right, Raeesa, over to you.
Go, Raeesa.
So a big part for me was the support group that Melissa's organization had started. It was a group that was run once a month, and we could go and share your thoughts, your feelings with people who can relate to what you were going through. And while we all have support structures in terms of family and so forth, there are certain things that you can only really share with people who are going through exactly as parents, who are going through the same kind of things that you were going through. So that support group was really, really beneficial for me. It would almost, number one, not make you feel so alone, because you can feel very, very alone, very isolated, being in a hospital environment quite frequently, and being surrounded by so much almost negativity, I want to say, stress. And it gave us a place to be able to go through that. That's one thing. We are very blessed, secondly, to have a very, very good support structure from both our families, Mohammed and mine, who step in, who step up, especially when Zane really isn't well. And also when he's okay and we need the help, because Zane does have a mobility-related issue, so he's not mobile, he's quite dependent on us, and they help us in so many ways. And then thirdly, you talked about something that I think is very, very important, is self-care for mums. or self-care for caregivers, parents, moms, dads. And you have to. You know, I always say you can't fill from an empty cup. You can't pour from an empty cup. So you need to be able to look after yourself as well, definitely.
Melissa, it's been a couple of years since your son has passed on. I might get a little too personal, but excuse me for that.
okay.
It's just that I want to get to, the heart of the matter. Do you have any other children? And where do you find the capacity? Because it must still be very painful for you to be holding other people's hands. And I'm sure we are human. You sometimes look at a child and think, it could have been my son. Or when a birthday comes around, he would have been 10 years old or however old he would have been. And lots of little reminders. How do you cope with that? And why do you continue doing what you're doing?
It's such a difficult question, but such an important one. Yes, Sam would have been 6 this year. And when we look back, our firsts were his first resuscitation, his first blood transfusion, his first x-ray. By the time he died, he'd had over 100 x-rays. So our journey with our child was so different. And when you lose a child, exactly as you say, you don't just lose your child, you lose your hopes and dreams and every milestone that you had dreamt for them. And Sam is our only child. We went through I went through in vitro, and that was a complete disaster. And then Sam was born naturally, and it just, now my husband and I met much older in life. So sadly, we haven't been blessed with other children, but we've been blessed with so many other children in that we are able to support families like the Trachease and also all the amazing hospitals that we work with. And, if you don't care for yourself, and I think I was very blessed too, when Sam came into our lives, I'd been studying life coaching, I'd left corporate and I'd gone into life coaching, and just realized that all the self-work that I'd done, the introspection and kind of the mindfulness exercises and the knowledge of who I was and where I wanted to be carried me through that. And my husband is also incredibly supportive. We have an amazing family. And that's why I studied palliative medicine, is to learn more about self-care, to learn more about healthcare, to understand how we can do it differently and how I can be there for others. But I know that on days I wake up and I think, today I can't. So if a hospital says to me, we've got a family and a mum that needs your support, I can say, sorry, I can't today, but I will get back to you tomorrow or the next day, because I have to check in constantly in terms of where my capacity is. Because the work that I do in hospitals, I debrief doctors, I debrief nurses, I coach doctors and nurses. So it's a lot of giving, and it's very emotionally draining. So I have to be very cognizant of where I am so that I can show up and I can continue to give, because that's Sam's legacy as well as my own.
I hope you have a supervisor with whom you can debrief. But
I do.
Wonderful. All right, we've got about 5 minutes left on the show. How time flies. How did this partnership start? Where are you at as far as the journey of the partnership is concerned? I'm throwing a whole host of questions at you guys. Also, how are healthcare professionals responding to you and Raeesa with this new initiative? Do they see it as something really positive and support you guys through this? And Raeesa, I also know that you have the Zanes Warrior Fund, the Children's Warrior Fund. Is that tied in with this new partnership?
Yes. So what we have done is, so Melissa's organization is Footprints for Sam, and our organization is the Zanes Children's Fund. So what we have done is we've created this partnership to create the program called Trach-ease. So Trach-ease is the initiative in really trying to get or change the perspective and implementation of tracheostomies. So unfortunately, the statistics are really poor in terms of putting in tracheostomies. So it's almost seen as a death sentence. Children are going home.
Is that because we don't have enough qualified medical personnel to carry out the procedure?
So it's twofold, I think. I think one is, most certainly, there isn't enough training in terms of getting children successfully home with the tracheostomy. And I always think of our little journey with Zane is, Zane's trachea got put in, and I got a delivery of goodies to look after him. I had no idea what to do. I remember walking into his room and I opened all these boxes and I sat there and I went, I don't know what 99% of the stuff is, what I have to do with it. And now my child needs to come home and I need to be able to manage this. So what Melissa and so Footprints for Sam and Zane, the Zane Kaji Fund have decided to do is to look at what needs to happen so that we can send home children who have tracheostomies in a safe environment, a supportive environment, and where to ask for help, most importantly.
Wonderful.
Melissa, do you want to talk a little bit more about what exactly is being done?
Okay. How far down the road are you? Has it been launched? Are you seeing success? Or are you still in the initial stages of launching it?
So we're very much initial stages. I think
Okay.
Raeesa and I are dreamers. We just dive into stuff and then we worry about everything afterwards. So, we've been wanting to do this forever. And it's amazing how suddenly we were approached by doctors and other palliative specialists to say, how do we do this? We know that you've had it on the cards. Can you jump in and help? And so it's been around for a long time, but we just haven't formalized it. And now the hospitals, both Charlotte and Raeesa, have reached out. I think there's already a program at Barrow that's been going for a few years. But what we've realized is the current program's only catered for children from 7 months. And that's a very dangerous window, because if the kids don't have the op long before that, like they do at the Breathe Easy program in Cape Town, then they are at risk of infection and of dying. So we're very excited to say, and I can't give names or details, but one of the hospitals has done a very young little one in Johannesburg, and that's a first. And that was largely because of the training that we were able to facilitate. We're busy putting together packs so the parents have their little welcome pack and all the little kits that they need. And together we're going to kind of bump our noses, I'm sure, and find our way through it all. But we've got a very successful model in Cape Town, and we're using that together with Sister Jane Booth, who actually was really one of the key founders and runners of the program in Cape Town. And for over 20 years, they've got children home to townships, no water, no electricity, on ventilators even, and they have done phenomenally well. These kids have really thrived. So our question is, then why can't we do it in private, and why can't we do it in the government hospitals in Joburg and get these kids home? Because children do not thrive in ICU. They're at huge risk. Every day in ICU, it's a compounded risk. We need to get them home successfully.
Okay, very quickly, Raeesa. So obviously this also means fundraising.
Yes.
What is your fundraiser going to be like? Can people who are watching and listening to us this morning already start digging into their hearts and making wonderful donations to the initiative?
Absolutely. So you can donate to either fund, Footprints for Sam or the Zane Kaji Children's Fund. And if you wanted specifically to go to the Trach-ease program, please can you reference your payments to Trach-ease, then we can allocate it accordingly. But yes, the more funding we have, the more lives we can change. Absolutely. It's as easy as that.
Okay. It's almost time for me to wrap up. How do people get hold of you? Give us website addresses or contact details, please. Melissa.
So for Footprints for Sam, they can contact us on www.footprints4sam, so footprintsforsam.org, and they can see all of our contact details there. We're also on Facebook and on Instagram and on Twitter, so they can drop us a note at Footprints for Sam. Raeesa?
And for us, we are just on Facebook, and you can just type in the Zane Kaji Children's Fund and the page will come up.
My final question to you, Raeesa. Our community, the Muslim community of South Africa, we hear all the time that they're a very giving community. Are they rallying around behind you?
Absolutely, always.
I'm glad to hear that.
Absolutely cannot say differently.
Ladies, it's been absolutely wonderful chatting to you guys. I'm so sorry that the time has just flown by, but we can perhaps talk again sometime soon. Once it's been fully launched, up and running, we can visit you guys again and see where you're at and the type of support you're receiving. So thank you so very much, you beautiful ladies, for being on my show this morning. Bye to you and salam alaikum.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
It's exactly 11:33. We're going to take an ad break, and when we get back, the show will continue. So don't go away.